Wow.
You know, a lot don't really.
I wanted to make a quick comment. I wanted to kind of go back earlier about men making excuses. Because they did move to manufacturing jobs overseas and so forth. I think we still, as consumers, we spent $1.2 trillion last year. That capital could be aggregated and directed and funneled into purposes where we can create our own economic infrastructure and bring back, jobs to our community. I often look, and I want to be thankful to my grandmother because I was brought up in an environment exactly like Dr. Valentine just described. Turning off the television, debriefing every day, making sure I was very aware of my history and so forth. And one thing that my grandmother would do, she always made me aware of all the different inventors that we had. We had so many different inventors and entrepreneurs. You don't see any of that going on today. I mean, like, where are the melanated inventors today? Nobody's inventing anything.
Well, see,
no.
that's my point, Yusuf. What?
Yeah, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You have to understand that back in 1875, 1880, 1890, the knowledge base and the education of black man and woman at that time was greater than the PhD level of the black woman and black man today.
Yep.
In fact, our great-great-great-grandparents were a hell of a lot smarter and were educated at a higher degree in less time than they are taking for us today. Most of these so-called subjects create subjects for the demon queen, if you understand what I'm saying. These subjects are meant to delay us into the workforce. They don't look to see whether or not you learned anything in college when you go looking for a job. They want to know if you could stay long enough in a particular position or institution so that they can use whatever intellectual capital you give or bring to that organization. So they have to retrain you on how they do what they do when you go get a job. So why are you in that, or why are you in school for damn near 8 to 10 to 15 years?
Yep.
Back in the day, you only had to deal with 7 years, maybe 6 years, maybe 5 years, and by the time you come out, the tests that they gave to children in the 8th grade, PhD could not pass today, back in those days.
Yep.
So what I'm saying is that when we are beginning to educate or to teach our own children, we have not invested the kind of critical thinking apparatus that they need in order to get into that part of their creative minds. We are only creating what they call, through this new education system that was a dovetail from the Prussian system, is called outcome-based education. And outcome-based education was where the dumbing down of our condition, of our brothers especially, happened. Because it wasn't about whether or not you were correct. It was about the attempts and the efforts you put in at being correct that was actually being monitored. So you didn't have to be right or wrong. Whereas when you're dealing with education, you're dealing especially with young boys, who, by the way, after they began to institute outcome-based education, that 60 to 75% of the boys throughout the United States dropped out. Why? Because it was a feminization of the education system where the boys were not allowed to exercise what is innate within them, that is critical thinking. They were not allowed to even get into sports because Title IX made sure that the only way they could participate is if girls were playing the same sport at the same time. So everything that happened with our people was to undermine the leadership. In Art of War, they tell you to attack the most powerful part of the enemy. You undermine the critical thinker. You undermine the primary authority. Once you undermine the primary authority and seed distrust, then the rest of the population who are women will also distrust the primary authority. And therefore the primary authority will have no more say-so, no more ability to lead. So when you take away the ability for our children to think so that they can be the new, what's the brother with the peanuts? George Washington Carver. You are not promoting that. You're not creating the Carvers. You're not creating the Latimers because you're not educating them along those lines. You see.
See,
Beautiful.
yeah, that was really great. Real quick,
Go ahead.
one thing, and see, this is what I'm talking about the excuses. To me, I see that these children have critical thinking. What I'm seeing that they don't have is blueprints to go by. See, when a lot of in the days when we were growing up, you were being taught a trade. You were being taught something. Whether it be gardening, whether it be carpentry, whether it be learning law, all of that. I think the disconnect comes to where our men are not given the time in to teach these children. You don't have to go to school to learn how to build.
I was about to say in college, the culprit in that. I mean, because you go to school. When I was in college, I really didn't see the point. I mean, unless you're going for a specialized degree like a doctor or lawyer or something like that. I mean, it's like they're constantly, telling you, this is what your employers are going to be looking for, this is what your employers are going to be looking for. Most people out there who get a degree, they aren't even employed in what they got a degree in. I mean, our professors used to tell us 80% of what you're going to learn on the job. So it's like, why am I here? And then most people getting these degrees, they can't even get a job. So it's like, I said the same thing. I dealt with a lot of college students and that critical thinking. I just said this last night. I was at a function last night, and a woman stood up. She says, I got 3 degrees, and I got a PhD. The first thing I responded to her, I said, well, that's all fine and dandy, but really to me, that's not any evidence that you're a critical thinker. Because it seems like college-educated people, they lack critical thinking, in my opinion. And just examining them, they don't try to be entrepreneurs. They got this way of thinking that's just totally like there's some type of somnamblistic type entity. I mean, I don't know. But that's just my opinion on that. I think that the educational system is a main culprit in that right now. And I tutored in college. Man, these kids coming out of high school, they don't even know how to capitalize. Look on Facebook. They don't even know to capitalize I at the beginning of a sentence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I said, we're here badly about certain things, and I'd like to move forward from here. Our children, especially, are the prize. Our women are the prize. And
you're breaking up a little bit, Dr. Valentine. You're breaking up a little bit.
Okay. Is this better?
Okay. All right,
and I said our children are the prize. Our women are the prize. They know who the enemy really is and who must be kept down and why it is that they raise women. This is what the Romans did when they conquered. They used to send the men off to different parts of their own territories that they conquered, and they sent them away from their homes, and they raised the women to take over in their jobs, in their place. And that's exactly how you dysfunction a society. You take away the gender purposes. You undermine gender itself. And you say that gender is a construct of some kind of patriarchal thinking. And when our black women start talking about patriarchy and matriarchy and all this crap, what happens is we tend to undermine the difference between the similarities to the microcosmic and the macrocosmic. Everything in the macrocosm shows that the masculine principle, which is the sun, is the centerpiece of all life in the planet, and anything that deals with the earth is the feminine principle, which revolves around it. And it is the masculine energy is polygamous in its nature, is what, quote, patriarchal in its nature. It is not about the arch in patriarchy. That is a European context. So any black woman speaking patriarchy is speaking based upon the view or the lens of the Eurocentric paradigm, which has nothing to do with the Afrocentric paradigm, because we have always extolled our feminine principle. We build statues. We are inspired by the goddess principle constantly. In fact, in earlier civilizations, she was seen as God, because in our perception, the baby that suckles at the breast of the mother, to the baby, the breast and the mother is God. So the younger our civilization was, yes, the mother principle was extolled as God. As you grow and it matures, it then comes into understanding the Father, which is the principle of Isis or Asht. When she says, no one has lifted my veil, what she means is, you got to get to me before you understand the Father. So you have to understand the nature. You have to understand the feminine principle of life. You have to interface and become empathetic with it. You have to love it. You have to see it, know it, touch it, taste it, be with it. You have to have that empathy.
Hello, Dr. Valentine. Dr. Valentine, you got cut off. You still there, brother?
Yes, I'm here.
Try to see if Dr. Valentine will come back again. Dr. Valentine, if you can hear me, you got cut off. We cannot hear you. You may want to hang up and call back in. I mean, he was going in.
Yeah, sure.
He was going in.
Hey, while you on the line, what do you think that, really with our children and stuff, they should be being taught to, to kind of change things?
Natural law principles. That's just my opinion. I think natural law principles. I don't think you can understand anything that's going on in the world until you understand the source of everything that's going on in the world, and that's natural law principles. I think that has to be reinstituted back into, y'all hear me say it all the time, like I understand the masculine and feminine principle. I don't kind of word it like how he does, but we got to understand those principles, the principle of cause and effect, the principle of mentalism, the principle of correspondence, the principle of cause and effect, the principle of rhythm, the principle of gender. We got to understand all of those principles and then work out from there and understand, how our world, how to interface with our world. I love how he just stated, you have to understand the feminine aspect. Now you have to interface with the feminine in order to understand the masculine. You have to know the mother before you can know the father. And, that was very beautifully stated. But I think that we've gotten sidetracked with this college thing. The college thing ain't doing nothing for us as a people. It ain't. It's just like everybody's trapped.
And I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that. And that was my question. Like, you have them graduate from high school, and then they're in the next phase of their life. Now, I'm independent, and I do skill trade, and, and they know that stuff, and I teach them. But they still have their own life and direction. And
yeah, they do.
Say, hey,
but their life is being influenced by media sources, that I don't think have anything, that is not going to benefit us as a people. I think back when I was younger, how I was raised: go up, go to school, get a good job. Just that paradigm of thinking. And, unless somewhere along the way I got put on the track to, and I think that I always possess critical thinking and analyze things and question things. When people don't analyze things and question everything, I think that's a problem when you're just totally accepting whatever is brought your way. Well, this is just the way it is. You can't do anything against the white people. Then white people can do whatever they want to do. Just all you don't just sit back. You don't sit back and that's the mentality. You don't sit back and think, no, they not. They can't do whatever they want to do. They're subject to the laws just like everything else in the universe it is. The only thing is they know the law. They probably know the laws better than you do, which is why it appears they can do whatever they want to do. Because one of the laws is that he who serves on the higher rules on the lower. Those who know the higher laws get to institute the laws on the lower level. So, that's just my take on it, is that we need a different sort of education, just as the brother was just expressing. Our education has to be, it has to be a different line. I think this line of education that they've taken us down. When Dr. Umar Johnson was on here, he said something, I like how he said it too. He said that college thing kind of came about in about 1979, 1980. We started promoting that very heavily to take people away from, trades and different things. And if you think back in school, we had the trade schools. People would come out of high school to be ready for a job. We had music. We had all these different things, and then slowly over time, all that got taken away from us. I think Dr. Valentine is back on. Dr. Valentine, you back with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I hate that I tried to carry it while you were gone. I hate that you, because you were just going in the flow. I want you to get your flow back, because you were rolling.